What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Living Electric. We're here with not one, but two guests today. We've got a return guest in Miss GoElectric. Welcome back to the show. And we're also joined by Ryan Levenson from the Kilowatts. So welcome to both of you to Living Electric.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. Good to be back.
Yeah. And so we're going to cover a lot tonight. I know all of us are very engaged on the EV side of the world. So I think the main reason we want to chat with you today is Charge Across America. I know you both were both on that show and really want to hear that story and kind of what got you into that.
Absolutely. We can share whatever you want to hear. So yeah, happy to share our fun little 10-day long experience driving across the country in the EVs.
I can't believe that was a year ago.
Was it really?
Is
Was
that
that
right?
already a year ago?
Since we actually
October.
filmed?
So
Wow.
like just barely, but yeah.
Wow.
Almost. I mean, my calendar's a little off. Too
No,
much.
but it's closer to it. It's closer to a year than not a year. So
Right.
Yeah, I feel like this year has just like flown by. As I was preparing for tonight's episode, I rewatched Charge Across America, and I'm like, oh, it's on Vimeo now. So like that was really really nice to see that.
yeah,
But,
that was
before
that
we
was a
dive
big
into
deal.
oh
Just
did it
getting
have
on
it on Vimeo?
Yeah, just because they only showed it on TV like 4 times, and then it was no longer on TV, and you couldn't access it anywhere. So I'm so glad that now, people, if they want to, jump back into that and reflect or see it for the first time, for a lot of people, they can.
Right.
Yeah, I thought it was perfect timing because they literally just uploaded it last week. So I'm like, oh, this is great for tonight's episode. But before we dive into that, Miss GoElectric, I know you've been on our show before, and Ryan, this is your first time. Do you guys want to give us some introductions to our listeners?
Sure, I'll go first, I guess. You guys.
Okay.
If you haven't seen the last episode that I was on with these guys, for a living, I am a product trainer and a product specialist. So automotive companies will hire me to go out when a new product is coming out and educate the masses, whether that be consumers or dealers or their employees. And when the pandemic hit, it created an opportunity to bring my craft to the internet. So I started the Miss GoElectric brand and YouTube channel and have been focusing on creating content while I'm now back at work a little bit. So, yeah.
It's awesome.
That's great.
And then for me, I kind of worked at Tesla for several years, and at the beginning of the pandemic, I realized I was kind of plateauing. I'm an extrovert, and I realized working remote wasn't really going to work for me, and so I made a choice that, now more than ever, I had an opportunity, and so I had been telling stories for Tesla, but more on the recruiting side. I'd done a little bit of storytelling for Tesla as a brand externally on the product side, but I was like, I want to do more of that. And I want to get more people excited about EVs and also help them understand what the difference between basically a good ground up design EV looked like compared to a, less good, more compliance, an EV design just to appease the governments. And sometimes those can be good, but for the most part, it's pretty clear to me that a ground-up design is often the way to design an EV. And so, again, telling those stories, helping people understand why EVs aren't just like an alternative, but really like what they should want and be excited about. And so, the Kilowatts was kind of launched to do that and to help pay the bills, kind of more of that side. I've got more of an accessibility side. So the Kilowatts is accessibility and information. Information is what you see on YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, and the accessibility side is what I do with Turo. And I've got now a fleet of 8 or 9 Teslas, 1 Rivian, and a couple more coming in the near future. I've got a whole bunch reserved as we're scaling up operations to kind of, again, address the accessibility side, get people in EVs for the first time, let them take it home and experience it.
Oh, that's awesome. 50 plus Cybertrucks, right? Coming?
Yeah, 52 Cybertrucks and probably then some. I'm looking at what the long-term business plan might look like, and the sky's the limit. I think with Cybertrucks, those just look like they would be the best rental vehicle. And we can get into that later, but I mean, this is probably more about looking backwards to Miss GoElectric and my experience with Charge Across America. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Ryan used to own a Mach-E, so that was part of his Turo fleet, and that's what we drove across the country for the Charge Across America rally.
Right.
Yeah. No,
Right.
it was a great vehicle to do that with, but also a challenging vehicle to do it with.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm curious with like the background of like Charge Across America. Obviously it's been almost a year since you guys have recorded this. Can you give our listeners kind of like how it started, how you guys I know you guys met each other online and that was your first time meeting in person. Can you give us a background?
Yeah, so if you don't mind, I'll kick it
Go
off.
ahead, Ryan.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of this came from in the same way that basically all of us met as we EV influencers do. We don't all live in the same part of the country, and so
Right.
just kind of chatting online, getting excited about different things. I had been talking to Miss GoElectric a little bit about just different projects or different vehicles I was excited about, and I was actually at the Lucid. Grand opening of their factory, and when they were rolling that first vehicle off the production line, and she had reached out because I got a picture with some of my great friends in the EV space, all great people, but she kind of highlighted that like, hey, where are the girls at this thing?
Right.
And I was like, yeah, you make a good point. There was not, I mean, for what it's worth, there are a lot of men in this industry, and just from a probability standpoint, if you picked 5 names out of a hat, you're likely to pick out 5 men, and that's unfortunate. But when she reached out and said that, I was like, I want to do whatever I can to help change that. And at the same time, I was just starting these conversations about Charge Across America with Kristen, I want to call her the proprietor, but she was
Managing director.
the managing director of Charge Across America. And I had expressed interest. I had offered kind of up my vehicle if that would increase my odds of being able to participate. And she was looking for a Mustang Mach-E already. And so basically, pieces were falling into place. And I was thinking about the list of people that I would want to do this with. And Lacey just became the obvious choice very quickly. I was like, I could do it with my dad and have like a father-son story. I could do it with like some other friends who are very Tesla focused. But I'm like, really at the end of the day, this is about, showing what's possible. And there's a pretty cool thing that Lacey and I had never met before, and it was just a great opportunity to get to know her and make a great, strong connection in the CV space. Because she's just a great contact to have, and it's been really fun having her out on the East Coast, seeing things that I'm not seeing in California. And it was an opportunity to create a friend, and I feel like that's what happened. So and many friends through the rest of the show, but yeah.
Yep, couldn't have said it better myself. Good thing you picked a stranger.
to be in the car with for 10 days, right?
Exactly.
Well, I think that was what was so immediately noticeable to me watching it, was just how much like on-screen chemistry you guys had immediately, and just like how much knowledge you guys brought to the table. Did you guys feel that way like immediately when you first met? Because it was very noticeable.
We definitely had to learn the boundaries of one another. Like, we really had to understand, like, oh, this is how this person operates, and this is how this person operates. And the objective was to make sure that each driver drove 50% of the time. So it's not like one person could just drive the whole time. So it's like he prefers a different type of navigation than I do. And, so we kind of got into a system after, like, I would say pretty quickly, like within the second day, we were like, okay, this is how we're going to try to operate. And of course, if we need to, on the fly, make any changes, we will just do our best to make the most rational, logical decision at that moment.
I'll say yes and to that. The basic premise for those that are just kind of figuring out what Charge Across America is, it was a 10-day rally race across the country. And so, there was a lot of like problem solving of like, where are we going to charge? When are we going to charge? Are we going to go for the bonus daily task, or are we going to skip that in hopes that we climb higher in the ranks? And it was, I agree, especially in like the first 2 or 3 days we figured out how to work with each other. But it was something where it's like, you road tripping, if you were to pick up any of your friends, it might already be challenging, but to pick up a stranger and have to learn the way, I think for me, it was like Lacey and I was often like top down, like what is the result that we want for today, which sounds weird saying it, but that's how I think. Like, what is the result that we want for today, and how do we make that happen looking like backwards? And I found quickly that Lacey was kind of the opposite. She needed to know, like, what are all the, and maybe I'm remembering this correctly, but I remember it being that Lacey kind of builds, like, what are the building blocks that could get us there, and then choose which of the paths to go. And it was a daily thing where we would both solve the problem in our own way, roughly as quick as we could. While someone was driving, we tried to feed the other person what they needed to hear to solve the problem the way that they need it, and then we'd hopefully agree on the path to take. And most of the time we did, but there was, sometimes it was like, hey, I got to make a right turn here in 3 miles. Unless you tell me I'm going to make that right turn, I'm not going to go straight. And it was intense. It wasn't just, best friends, easy flowing from the get-go.
Right.
That's true. And what was challenging is that, we were, I would say, already at a deficit just because of, obviously the Mustang Mach-E is an awesome car, but when you are in a rally like this and you're against 2 Porsche Taycans that can charge much faster than you and
right.
hold it deeper in the pack, then you have to do literally everything that you can. You cannot mess up. You can't make any mistake in order to try to make it on top every day. And, that it was really hard and stressful because we both really, really wanted to win.
Right.
I think the way that I thought about it was like, the Taycans are like, for those in the know, it's a better, grand touring vehicle. Like, and if you're trying to put on miles on a car, a Taycan, as Lacey said, is better. But nothing was like cut and dry to everyone. This was almost, it felt like a pilot. And the organizers wanted to make it fair, and that ended up skewing things even further. So yeah, we were in the better set of cars, but we had multiple challenges from multiple sides trying to compete with vehicles that are, yes, the Taycan's factually better, but then also the rules that, at least with this team figuring out how to make this work at a roughly fair level, that, yeah, it was a challenge.
It was funny because I posted about the video now being available on the internet because they just released it to their website on chargercrossamerica.com. And so when I retweeted it, I said, oh, who's ready for round 2? And Brad and Amanda, who were the people that got second place, they were like, nope.
We're going to spoil it. Spoiler alert. Brad and Amanda got second.
They did. Whoops.
Yeah.
It was a year ago. If you haven't seen it yet, it's on video.
I think we're past the embargo or whatever for
exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
But he was like, nope, not doing round 2.
Wow.
I just want to say, if there's a round 2, I volunteer.
Right?
Seriously. Like, yeah,
they are trying
I'm
to do
down
a round
for that.
2, that's for sure. I just talked to the managing
Really?
director the other day, and she said that they are. I don't think it'll happen probably at least till next year, just because of production constraints and getting sponsors lined up and stuff like that. But they are talking about doing a round 2, so and potentially doing an OEM, like a solo OEM version. So if, say, for example, this isn't real, but for example, if Ford wanted to have all their EVs in it, then they would do that, or vice versa, any other.
Wow.
I like that idea. Yeah, that'd be
level the playing field.
And there's definitely merits to that because, the level playing field. It was something where we had to, really put our elbows out and our EV expertise to the limits in order to compete with these Taycans. And I could see if you've got 5 of identical vehicles, then it really becomes strategy and plugging. And it changes the game entirely.
Right. Were you the only group that were complete strangers that met up like the day of the event?
No. Don and Dennis.
Right.
Okay. I was trying to remember who all
and that
did
was it, I think, because everyone else, Don and Dennis, the 2 old guys.
Their dynamic was fun.
Yeah, they were great in the Volkswagen 94.
And again, this is where the stories come in that you guys didn't get to see. I mean, those guys had such great personalities, and there was days that you thought, oh, these guys have given up already. Then the next day they won it, and they're like, that was our plan all along. And you're like, you guys, you're like one day they,
so good.
Yeah, they showed up like 4 hours late, and they claimed that just chilled, and they had decided they weren't going to win, and then the very next day I think they beat everyone by an hour.
That's funny. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they were awesome.
The one scene that really comes to mind is when I think it was Dennis. He got out of the car and he just walked up to the time machine, and everyone's like, come on, and he's just like taking his time. I was like, I love that. It's great. So I do have a question about strategy, because as I was rewatching it, I noticed that I think it was the Neon Nomads. They mentioned that people are blocking the faster chargers. Is that just because of strategy or just because of people not knowing that those are more powerful chargers? Like, do you guys have, because they didn't really explain that.
It was strategy.
Was it
and
strategy?
Honestly,
Okay.
like even I would say today, that would definitely not be kosher in the environment with so many more EVs on the road, even just now. But all the chargers we were going to, there were pretty much, it was rare for anyone to be on the charger while we were there. So that's why we felt comfortable enough to do it. Because otherwise, EV etiquette, that's not a very nice thing to do.
Right.
No.
Because our Mach-E could only take 150 kilowatt max. And those Taycans could push way more. So we would try to jump on those 350s if we could get there first.
And that was something that, like, before we started, I hadn't thought about. And so, like, again, like on camera, there's like a realization that I made. I'm like, maybe it was as we were leaving New York, or maybe it was the next day. It was like, wait a second. If we pull up to a 250 kilowatt charger, being that the Mustang Mach-E cannot pull more than 150, should we plug in to the 250? And it was a realization that, yes, like that is like one of the only ways that we might win, because it basically had the effect of leveling the playing field.
Right.
So there's just so many things that, like, yeah, when you've got these different vehicles that pull different charge rates, you have to, it felt like playing dirty, but I realized, like, in a way, it's, you also, like, yeah,
It was within the rules.
It's
Yeah.
it's not just within the rules, but it's quite frankly like the way the game had to be played. And I guess what frustrates me about that is that is still, as you're saying, like, it matters. And I don't think enough people even know, or, you know, if a charger's crowded when you first get there and then everyone else leaves, should you then move to the one that's more appropriate for your charge state? There's so many little things like that, you know, are fascinating now, but I hope are also solved for the future. So that way that wouldn't be a strategy we could use. Again, it shouldn't matter that you've got an Ioniq 5 versus a Mustang Mach-E. It should just charge as quick as possible. So I think, you know, we're still early days with EVs, and that's what makes this kind of like fun and exciting and new. But also, those fun and exciting and new things are reasons why people are maybe a more hesitant to buy EVs. So I'm hoping these things are more solved in the future, so it's not a thing where you have to think so much about where you plug in or which one you plug into.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's realistic too, because like a lot of people who don't have the EV experience may not go up to a charger, be like, oh, this is the one for me. You know, it's like a Bolt, you know, parked at a Green 7 or, you know, a 350 kilowatt charger. Like, and they don't know. So like, I think it is realistic to kind of have that dynamic. You know,
And
not everyday drivers are going to know.
You've done a lot to, like, actually communicate that with ChargeWay, is that right?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. You know, it's stuff
Yeah.
like that like, there needs to be simple ways to communicate and for people to understand what the charging infrastructure looks like. Again, I hope that it's solved more on the hardware side, that, like, again, maybe the next generation of vehicles help solve that. But even in the interim, there needs to be better communication and understanding between, like, why would it was something that even me as a EV expert was like a realization that, like, oh, I should not use my normal etiquette. In fact, I should use my etiquette in reverse here. And so that, but like, I don't think people even know that there is etiquette, because at a gas station, there's not etiquette other than once you're done filling, you leave the spot.
Well, don't block the diesel if you don't take diesel either.
Oh, sure. But
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
These things are more obvious to gas and less obvious with electric at this point in time.
Right. Yeah, I like your point about the hardware, though, because, like, ideally, every station's a 350. It doesn't matter which one you plug into. There shouldn't be, like, you shouldn't have to pick and choose which charger you're plugging in at a site. Like, that just confuses everybody.
And
So-
in a weird way, Tesla...
And I think that...
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
In a weird way, Tesla's kind of solved this in the inverse, where they also have different speeds of stations, but the car will, you know, route you to the right station. So yes, well, you might have a 75, 150, or 250 charger. The car will, you know, direct you to that general location rather than having it be different chargers at the same location. So it's
Right.
The problem exists on both, but I like Tesla's approach here, where it's once you're already at the location, for the most part, any of the chargers that you plug into, it's going to be the same difference.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
I was just going to say that now with the federal infrastructure plans getting pretty much shook out, can't talk. But they have all proposed their plans, and it looks like most of them are going with 150 kilowatt chargers for the infrastructure that has to be built within those 50 miles of the highway corridors. So I think that's the majority of what we will see. So it almost does kind of make it like a level playing field because they're all going to be right around that 150 mark.
Yeah.
That's good, but I wish it was a bit more. I'm like, as I think about charging, 50 kilowatts is barely fast charging. Like, I'm surprised that exists. 150 kilowatts is good if you're not power showing, and I don't know enough about if these would be power showing. I guess EA, I don't think power shows their 150s. And then really, I would like to believe that 250 would be like the future focused, but maybe I'm thinking too far ahead.
Yeah.
I've seen. Oh, go ahead, Alex.
I was gonna say I know the plans, like you were saying, are it's 150 dedicated per port. So like it would have to be like no matter like what cars are parked there, you have to get 150. That's
Good.
generally the rule.
And that's gonna be good, especially as we get these bigger trucks and whatnot online. Because if you're getting less than 150 for any of the big trucks, it's gonna be painful.
Yeah. But I agree with you. I think it should be higher. But in the past, most government funding has started at a minimum of 50. So anything above that, I feel like is a marked improvement. And who knows, we may see like, all right, this has been in place for 5 years. All right, we're bumping it up to 200 now. You've got to be above 200 if you want government funding. I could definitely see those goalposts kind of move as we get the stations more built out.
And there also might be overachievers, just because the minimum to get funding is 150 doesn't mean they won't deliver something. Yeah. So you're making good points. Thank you for highlighting that. Yeah. Anything more than 50 is good because 50 is painfully slow for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're still installing 50 kilowatt chargers. Like I've seen some new EVgo stations in California go live that are 50 kilowatts.
Oh god.
Yeah. But then they'll pop up like all these 350 kilowatt stations, and like it's like okay, at least they're getting chargers in the ground. So
right.
But I have actually I saw a LinkedIn post recently where they're kind of targeting 180 kilowatts as kind of the universal power output. I don't know if you've seen that, Alex, in your job, but I know Circle K, they're installing charging stations, and that's what they said their minimum is going to be is 180 because it's going to be the most universal, future-proof.
Yeah, it's a good kind of middle ground that's like a little bit above 150, but then you've also got to take like charging curves into account because like how long are you actually charging at 350 kilowatts? Like it's maybe for 5 minutes. Like you're not getting that peak rate, and sometimes it's not even worth it. Like at least, especially budget wise, because I mean, budget rules everything generally when you're putting these stations out. Is like, is it really worth it to bump it up to 350 when 150 gets the job done? Like for an extra like 200 grand? Like most people do the math and they're like, no, it's not anywhere close to worth it. So
yeah,
lots of decisions people have to make on that side for sure.
I think you made a really good point highlighting to me that the 150 is a great place for a lot of for the base of the government funding.
Right.
You're right. Most people in most situations 150 is going to be great, and so that hearing 150 to 180, like most people are going to be really happy with that.
Yeah.
Also, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Keep interrupting everyone.
You're the guest.
I was gonna make a joke. I was gonna say as long as it's better than 50.
No, I was just gonna say if we match dwell time and if people figure out that they don't have to keep plugged in for longer than what they need, then we'll all be okay. I'm happy.
Yes. Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's actually a good leeway back into Charge Across America because the one question I wanted to ask you guys when you guys were charging, I'm assuming you didn't do 20 to 80. You were leaving before.
We did 10 to 100. Sometimes 101. We'd stay for an extra minute or two.
Oh, good. I'm happy to hear that.
That was one of the points of battle was how much buffer, because he drove the car a lot and was very comfortable with the buffer, and I wasn't sure exactly how it was going to be with all the elements taken into consideration,
right?
Because at one point when we were driving through, I think it was like Colorado or something like that, we had such severe headwinds that if we did not like immediately stop and charge, then we wouldn't have made it to the last station. But we didn't know that until we were already we didn't know that until we saw Neon Nomads slowing down, and we were like, why are they doing that?
they left the previous Charger with like 2 miles of range short, thinking that they had a buffer in the Porsche, but it was an uphill climb into the wind. And so like 4 miles, but maybe even 5 miles before the freeway exit we needed, we saw them taking a freeway exit. So that was crazy. But it was a game of knowing your car, one, and the fact that it was my Mustang Mach-E definitely helped us. And then I think the other thing that helped us, at least from my perspective, was I had just, because I wanted to do this and I didn't know when I'd be able to, I had just done the Cannonball, and I just set the EV Cannonball record. And I'm specifically going to call out Kyle Connor for, he had it with the Porsche Taycan, and I took it back in the Tesla with the Model S. And so I think like having some of that also recent experience, like literally the week before, helped me to judge some of those environmental factors a little bit more clearly than even I would have if I had done it in the opposite order, if I had done Charge Across America and then the Cannonball. Because both situations, the worst thing you can do is truly run out, but the second worst thing you could do is have too much charge, wait too long to charge. So that's, for anyone watching the show, it's something where you definitely, charging an EV is not as stressful as what we did. What we did was pushing ourselves and the car to its limits on both ends, getting it as low as reasonably possible, charging up as quickly as possible, and unplugging as early as possible. So that's not how people should approach it. They should, generally speaking, plug in at 10%, unplug when they need to, or before 80%, and then go charge at another fast charger down the road.
Right. What was the most common mistake either you saw other people making or you've looked back and have realized now was a mistake throughout the 10 days?
Well, Neon Nomad's made quite a few mistakes.
Shade.
Amanda,
We're throwing shade.
Yeah, you didn't have to call anybody
I
out
felt really
specifically,
bad.
but
I felt really bad, but I know that Brad was really upset with her because she took a wrong turn at the very, very end. Then the last day is what it came down to. It literally came down to 40 seconds or something like that, Ryan?
Yeah.
Because they were trying to leapfrog the other team in order to get a place above us and then secure the win. So, you couldn't make any mistakes. And that 40 seconds, the wrong turn, probably did it for them.
And it was the day before, too. I think it was the day before there was a charger that they thought it was on the left, and it was after making a slow right-hand turn with the road, you had to make the immediate left. And we made the left, I think, was it behind them? And they went one more up and then made a left because there was almost another immediate left, but they were stuck in the parking lot and had to come back. And we thought we thought they were messing with us and just were able to go on to the next charger 50 miles down the road. And 2 minutes later, they pull in. And again, at this specific charge point charger, whoever plugs in first charges slightly faster than whoever plugs in second. So the fact that they made a wrong turn there, same thing.
Wow.
Wrong turns.
There was so many. It was so many little things. It was strategy. It was navigation. It wasn't really intense. There were mistakes made, and I think a combination between strategy and wrong turns is what led to their demise.
You constantly had to double check everything. Double check the charger status, because some of the stations, there was actually a whole bank of chargers that were completely down in, I think it was Baker. So we ended up going to the EVgo station that was nearby, but that EVgo station was brand new and it wasn't even posted on a lot of the charging app services. So the other team went to a charge point that was down the road, whereas we went to the 350 that was the EVgo station. So it was stuff like that if you didn't know to check all of the resources possible, then that could have set you back as well.
And I think that the only reason why I even checked that was, again, because I'd just done the Cannonball and seen that the Baker Electrify America was offline. I just experienced, and I don't remember, maybe it was back online, but that's what made me look for better chargers and made us find the EVgo, which this EVgo station was brand new, and it wasn't even labeled which one was the 350. So we had to plug into one, switch to another. Oh my God, I'm reliving some of these stresses now, and it was crazy.
Well, so Ryan, that makes sense
session.
because was it the large thermometer?
The thermometer
station?
one, yep.
Okay,
Yep.
yeah. So I've never been there, but I've seen photos. But I remember that clip very clearly because you were running around getting connectors. Is that why? Because you didn't know the power output?
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
the new EVgo stations didn't have the stickers on them, and they weren't units that I had seen before, so I didn't know what to look for. And so we just plugged into the first one, and I think we thought that one was a 350, but maybe the credit card reader wasn't working on that one, so yeah, we ended up plugging into another one, and I mean, at the same time, there's just people just trying to go about their lives, trying to plug into chargers too. Which again, like same thing with the Cannonball. Like I had experience with the Cannonball where I'm like, I've got $5 ready if you'll wait to plug in, kind of thing. I don't think we ever had to do that, but there was at that specific one. I think we were a little bit worried because someone pulled up and they didn't speak English, and we're like, we really need that charger, and they're plugging into that one. We were safe. But yeah, if they knew that was the 350, they would. If they knew that was the 350, they may have plugged in there, but their specific vehicle would not have benefited from the 350. So it's all this calculated risk analysis. Do we unplug while we wait for them to plug in, or oh my gosh.
Did you have to help anybody with charging along the route? I can't remember if that was in the show at all. Like anybody that was trying to charge their car and like you're just waiting for your car to charge?
Yes. Yeah,
I mean, I feel like that happened like pretty, like if we saw people at a charger, then that was what happened.
And on top of that, we even helped other competitors. At a certain point in time, it started to feel like there was a bit of a divide. And in a way, you also not only want the show to be successful and competitive, but you also need these other people. Like what ended up happening was the Mighty Morphin Power Racers finished, again, that last 30 seconds before the Neon Nomads. They had to be competitive. They had to care. And so, these were things that happened off camera at the hotels, and, we're making friends here. And I was like, we're looking at like the last day, and I'm like, we did not think we were going to win. We had just kind of been messed up by the previous day. We needed them to do well. And I think they knew that, and it didn't hurt them to stay competitive. At that point, they had no chance of winning. But by staying competitive on that last day, it made the difference. Like they literally could have just, gotten burritos and chilled by the beach and then decided to pull in right before midnight. But because they didn't, that's the difference. So in a way, it's like, the friends the real victory was the friends we made along the way was the case with the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers finishing before them, because if they hadn't, we definitely would have lost. And again, there was other things along the way where it helped to. What I'm saying is I helped them to learn a little bit about charging because they never experienced EVs before. And towards the end, I think they realized what was at stake, and it didn't cost them one way or the other. So they're like, we're not going to just take it easy. We're going to stay competitive today because we want to. I think they knew they wanted to help us.
And generally, we're both EV educators. We want people to adopt the technology, and we want people to learn like the intricacies. No, not everyone is going to want to, but we still like to deliver it.
Yeah, exactly.
If you just listen to us, we will tell you.
Right.
So, that was just kind of our natural, at times we would start talking, and then Ryan would go into a little bit more strategy detail and be like, Ryan, just take it down one notch.
Don't give away
I wanted to win so bad.
Don't mess this up for us.
I wanted to win, but I also wanted to help out our friends. And basically people that didn't know about, I'll give a shout out to a Better Route Planner. That was kind of my thing. Once I felt like we were far enough ahead of any given team, and this was not intentional at the beginning, but looking back, it was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But once I felt like we were far enough ahead where we could keep a lead above a team, I would be like, hey, have you heard of a Better Route Planner? We're 5 days into this race across the country. You should probably check this app out. It's very effective and efficient, and that's how we're currently ahead of you, is, among other things, a Better Route Planner.
Right.
I need to get them to sponsor me. That is a great tool, and if anyone hasn't heard of it, definitely check out a Better Route Planner.
Definitely.
No matter what EV, I feel like I use it with my Tesla still, so it's it's amazing.
Yeah.
Right.
No, and it's integrated into a couple OEMs like Polestar. It's got a Better Route Planner. Can't recommend it enough for new people using EVs. If you don't trust your onboard system, you should trust a Better Route Planner. It's great.
Yeah.
Apple CarPlay, Android Auto.
Yep. It's how I planned my it's how I planned my Cannonball run. The most recent attempt was all on a Better Route Planner.
Right.
You guys have to remember, I work for ChargeWay, but yes, they have a great tool.
and ChargeWay is. I don't know.
I'm just joking.
I think it was in both. I think most people should use both. Like I don't see them as competitors at this point. They're both useful tools for understanding what's available to you and getting the most out of your car. So use both.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, like I can't tell you how many apps I have on my phone. So
Needs to be consolidated.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is with like the EV industry is that like at this moment you need those apps. Like there's not a one fit all solution to help everything. Make everything easier. Which actually leads into my question. Some of like the new drivers who just like were getting into electric vehicles. At the end of the show, I was wondering, are they going to do a recap of like what people learned? Are people going electric now in terms of like the drivers on the show? Like, I'm curious what like their feedback was.
We'll have to do a reunion to find out.
No. I had talked to so Craig and Janice, which who's in charge is the team, the mother son.
Yep.
Janice was like, she loved the experience, and Craig did too. They had a great time. But Janice really was like, I'm gonna buy an EV. But at the time, right after the show, it was so hard to get. I mean, it's still hard to get product.
Right.
So, I was just telling her, like, if you don't buy used, if you can't find anything used, you're going to have to wait for a while, put an order in, and get a car that way. And I don't think she's gotten one yet because she was looking for a certain price point, and it was right on the border of what she could navigate with her budget. But she really wanted the Mach-E.
Yeah, and I remember
as we all look to Ryan.
Well, because I sold my Mach-E, unfortunately, in that situation, and I guess I feel a little bit bad knowing that that's what she was looking for, because the only reason why I sold mine was at the time, like literally as the show was going, there was an open recall that had just kicked off for the roof glass and the windshield glass for the urethane. They may have not applied enough adhesive, basically. And so we fortunately didn't have any issues with that. But as a Turo host, I was unable to host my vehicle for anywhere between 1 to 6 months. And 1 month, totally fine. 6 months, financially, that's hugely detrimental. So I had to make the tough choice to get rid of that. And at the same time, Model S had just become available to me. So it helped me to kind of open up the financing to make that purchase. And then actually I just like 2 weeks ago sold that Model S. So times move kind of fast, it seems. But yeah, no, I think there was a couple others that were convinced that their next car would be electric. So it would be kind of fun, especially like if and when that, second round comes about, for us to kind of get back together and have a podcast just to say like, yeah, what are you driving now? What are your thoughts on electrification now? Because obviously like this was a mix. I mean, many people had difficulty activating chargers. Many people had chargers fail, charge ports fail, which
they
should
ran
not
out of charge.
Should not. Ran out of charge either for the first time accidentally or intentionally, trying to push it to the limits. And so, this isn't the average of what someone might expect to experience, but it was a stress test. And people who have never driven EVs before, being invited to a stress test of EVs, have mixed feelings. So yeah, Janice over the moon about it, but others might not be as much so. And so it would be fun to hear what their thoughts are now. And I don't think they're going to enroll the same cast to do it for round 2 necessarily, but if there's a way for us to reflect upon that, we should do that, absolutely.
Yeah. I think what they should do is, I'm not going to spoil it, but I think that you guys should come back and you guys should be the top challengers, and then like a whole new cast, and I think that'd be fun. And I think what they should do is they should allow Teslas, but they should not be allowed to use the supercharger network. They have to use the CCS adapter.
I would agree with that. That was the biggest thing that, like, again, I am very much a Tesla fan, more than most people who explore the other side of the pond. I am very pro Tesla, but I'm also pro everyone else, especially when they're non-compliant, well-built EVs. But yeah, it's something where I would love to participate again. But I also recognize that like maybe it's 5 years down the road when they've done a bunch of other seasons and all the winners go, and I don't know what it could look like, but it feels like this is something where there is discovery, there's learning curve, and I hope that there's more opportunities to show how this gets easier over time. Like in an ideal world, this show is almost laughably easy. It's just a drive across the country, and it feels like any other show. It doesn't even feel like an EV focused show. It just feels like Survivor for driving across the country.
Right.
So I'm excited by like what we did, but it also was much more challenging than it should be. And if you bring in Teslas, if you, maybe there's a different one 3 years down the road where it's only Teslas, or charging infrastructure right now is one of the most important things to accelerate this transition. And I hope that people see that our experience being imperfect is a highlight of where we've gotten to, but also where we need to get to.
Yeah, because we made it. You can drive from coast to coast. Clearly, Ryan's done it several times.
Yeah.
So it's doable. The other thing that I felt like I wish there was more time for the show was more of the education side of things. And there was a little bit, but really there was so much opportunity to dive a little bit deeper on, each day. And there was just so much footage. They had to cut so much down to be able to fit into a 45-minute segment. They could do like a 6-part series if they wanted to. That's how much footage they got.
Right.
So there's a lot more opportunity, and I really do hope that the education side of things would be more of the focus on the next go around to get people to understand more, and also dive a little bit more into the characters, because that, to me, I loved it so much because of meeting all these guys. It was so much fun hanging out with them after the competition was over each day.
Right.
And I wish they would have shown personalities a little bit more, because that was a highlight for me.
Yeah,
Definitely.
absolutely.
Did the showrunners provide any kind of, you mentioned like using all the apps and stuff, like did the showrunners give you any kind of support initially, or was it like just go figure it out?
If you don't mind, I'll start that one. They didn't themselves know. In fact, like the producer, Kristen, it was her first time driving an EV. Because I as the Kilowatts helped sponsor the initial production, I offered a discount on my Model Y for her to use to get across the country. So they were, in a way, that's what helped them to stay ahead of us, because Teslas generally have easier, smoother charging with more locations. So she was able to charge at the middle of the night. For what's not been said yet, we could not charge between days, which, if you drive EVs, you charge every night. Even when you're on the road, you find a hotel. You generally don't have those kinds of stressors. So she was able to stay ahead of us in my Tesla Model Y, but it was also her first time. So really the producers didn't have that level of knowledge. So again, in a big way, as I saw people struggling or getting disheartened about their possibility for competing, that's when I would try to share just like little tidbits to keep them excited about it, because it was something where unless you are dead set on trying to figure this out, it was a little bit exhausting for some of the teams.
Right. Yeah.
So, Ryan, I do have to follow up before we jump to another topic that I think that this is a good leeway into. I need to know, why were you running through the parking lot in Michigan? I think that was Michigan, because I've been to that charger in Ypsilanti, and there is no bathroom in that area. So I think that's why. Why were you running through that?
Lacey, do you remember?
No, it was because, part of to get points, there was a lot of ways to get points every day, and one of the ways was to get local food. And in order to get local food near the charging station, you had to just hop on the charger, and sometimes I would just drop him, closer towards the intersection where their restaurant was. It had to be local. It couldn't be a chain. So sometimes those were quite a bit further away.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
a couple times Ryan booked it on foot to climb fences and stuff to go get the food while I charged, or vice versa. That was most of the time why he was running.
We played every part of that game.
We need a supercut of Ryan just running throughout the entire show.
It was. Again, we played every part of that game, and it was strategy. It was in a way, that was something that I'm a bit of a runner. I've ran a marathon, several half marathons, so it was something we have to use everything we have with this car that is, again, it's not, the Mustang Mach-E isn't leagues and bounds worse than the Porsche Taycan, but we're also restricted on our speed. So it's like, when you set two cars off on the road, other than stoplights, hypothetically, they should get to the end destination at the same point in time. So if we ever were behind, which we were at times, we had to make up for that. So yeah, running across parking lots was my way of like, how do we steal a couple minutes? How do we, make sure that it's not the thing that puts us on the charger second? So that
Right.
45-second difference that required me to run across the parking lot made all the difference for us getting on the charger first.
That's
Okay.
awesome.
Well, that's good to know, because when we were watching it, there was like no explanation, but like I remember going to that charger
Just going for a
and
jog.
having to, yeah, right. Well, that Walmart closed down, so there's no 24/7 bathroom in that parking lot anymore. So in Ypsilanti, Michigan, so it's either the Popeyes, which is normally locked, or you have to run down the block to use the
Yes, you
bathroom.
do.
So
Yes, you do.
I've been there, done that in the rain. It's not a fun charging stop.
And I'm sure that's part of the reason why I did it too. I'm sure that I was running for multiple reasons.
Well, it made for a good show. So
Good.
yeah.
Did you want to do another topic? I know we're getting close on time here. Did you want to wrap up?
Oh,
or?
yes. Yeah. So I know we only have like 5 minutes because you have a clean cutoff at 6, Ryan. I want to talk about the EV tax credit that President Biden just signed into law. And I kind of want to get your opinions on it. I know it's a moving target right now. There's still a lot of things that we're all learning about it. But I think the one main headache and concern for people is that it's going to impact EV sales and EV adoption. I would love to know what you guys think about that.
Well, I think it's interesting because I think it does a little bit of both. Right now, it's going to hurt more just because most of the EVs that are available on the market right now are above the price tag, or they're built somewhere else, or they have the battery materials that are, a lot of it comes from China. So they are going to not qualify because of those things. And so although there are quite a few on the list that could qualify now, there's going to be a big shakeup, and it is also like tiered. So that's the interesting thing, is that, once the law got signed, this first batch of things was approved. So like, what's interesting is if you did sign a purchase agreement for a vehicle that you have on order but isn't coming until next year, which would technically force it to qualify for the new EV tax credit and not the old one, then you wouldn't be getting any incentive, because some of them just, they don't qualify. They're over the price tag. There's an MSRP cap, or again, the battery materials, or they're not manufactured here. So I think in the near term, it's not good because there are a lot of EVs that don't qualify, but ultimately, I think it's going to force manufacturers to build cars here. They'll also, make more affordable options that are under the $50,000 price tag for sedans and under $80,000 for the vans and SUVs and trucks and stuff like that. But, it's going to take some time, and it's a 10-year plan. So, how fast can these automakers meet that?
On where I'm coming from on it, which I'm still learning about, and I think it is this complex web of pluses and minuses. And a few of the things that come to mind are like, they are doing more to incentivize hydrogen, which hydrogen for the most part is used as a battery. It's like a lithium ion battery. The hydrogen gas is used to power an electric motor. There's a little bit of transitioning there, but my general stance on hydrogen as a battery for consumer electric vehicles is not the best. I don't think that highly of it. And so I know that there's some increased incentives for that and for PHEVs, which there's a general, for those that haven't heard, there's like kind of two ways of thinking about partial electric vehicles with gas. Is like you either see it as the best of both worlds or the worst of both worlds. And I'm of the camp that it's kind of the worst of both worlds. But as a consumer, it's hard to see that when you're making a transition. Normally, we as humans don't like that much change. And so why not, walk your way slowly into it? But you end up in a situation where you might buy an PHEV because of the tax incentives. And there's a number of things that might not be the best with that. So things like most of those PHEVs have a range of 30 miles. And so it might not make sense for you to plug in overnight. If you do plug in overnight, you get that range and extra power for a little bit of your drive, but it might not be your whole drive. I think PHEVs only really make sense for people that their commute is within that range, and beyond that, it's only for like weekends that they use gas. But again, if you never use that PHEV for road trips, then you might have your gas go stale. You still have oil changes. So you get all the negatives of having a gas car still, maintenance and whatnot, and only a very few of the positives. And now suddenly you're getting this tax incentive that I really would have preferred to see cut. I think that so many of the EVs that are on the market today, with the exception of their current price point, are what people should be buying. Like most people would be very, very happy in any of the newer EVs to come out. I'm thinking like the Ioniq 5s of the world, the ID4s. Obviously Teslas are a little bit expensive right now, and they don't qualify for the $7,500 federal tax credit. But again, we're seeing demand be so high. If I was to write this bill, I would have focused almost solely on, and I'm going to go back to the start of our conversation, like that high-powered infrastructure. I just think that is going to make all of the world of difference for adoption. Money is a big part of it, but I think there's so much demand already. And yes, they will be expensive for a few more years, but if we just provide infrastructure, I think there's a combination in there, I'm sure, but I would like to see more development on infrastructure first, to just make it super accessible. Infrastructure from the energy generation, storage, and delivery, to me is just as important to the transition as some of the, especially the money going into hydrogen or PHEV. So there's still a lot I need to understand on who and what qualifies. And as I think Lacey kind of summed it up really well, we are going to see some shifting strategies to deliver to those tax incentives, and that'll probably be good. But in the short term, there's a lot that doesn't work out, so we'll have to see.
Yeah. Well, we'll save the rest of the discussion for part 2. We'll have you guys back on. But before we drop off, do you guys mind giving social shout outs and where people can find you guys?
Sure. Yeah. So
follow me at okay, I'll go first. Follow me at Miss GoElectric on Twitter, Instagram, pretty much anywhere on social media,
Awesome.
and youtube.com/Miss GoElectric.
And for me, look up the Kilowatts, or just the word Kilowatts without the vowels. And we're talking about everything EVs on any of the social channels. And then we're also on Turo, renting out that fleet here in the Bay Area and a couple cars up in Seattle.
And can I just mention something real quick? Are we all going to Fully Charged Live?
I'm not
Yes.
Alex, are you?
I am trying to. I know a ton of people are going, so I would
Alex,
really
we'll
like to
see you
join
there.
So I'm planning on it.
Do it.
Yes.
And our
come.
listeners-
And come
We'll see
see
you
us
there.
at Fully Charged Live. Come see us at Fully Charged
Yes.
Live. We're going to be there
All right.
September 10th
It's
and
decided.
11th.
I'm coming.
Alex, you're coming.
Yes.
Sounds
Come
awesome.
It's been
visit.
decided.
All right.
She's so good at that. She's so good at marketing. So that's the last thing. Every person she met along the way got a card and like a badge, and oh my god, she's so good at that.
I'm in marketing.
Yes.
What do you
All I
I've
have
still
is
got my
this.
button. I've still got my button.
That's
I
what
love
I've been
it.
doing for a living for forever.
It's wonderful. Thanks for having us, guys.
Awesome.
Thank you guys.
Yeah. Thanks so
Awesome.
much.
Thank you so much, guys.